December 28, 2014, from LP Field in Nashville, Tennessee, was the Indianapolis Colts at the Tennessee Titans in this AFC South Division rivalry matchup on the final week of the season. The Titans would get the ball first. They would start off with it on their own 26 after the opening kickoff, but after 6 plays, they would end up punting from their own 43. So now the Colts would take over on their own 12-yard line after the punt with 12 minutes still remaining in the first. And they would actually bring the ball near midfield, but after 8 plays, they would end up punting from their own 44. So now after the punt, the Titans would take over on their own 17 with about 8 minutes left in the first. They did pick up a first down when Wright ran on an end around for 10 yards to bring it to the 27. But then on 3rd and 10 from the 27, Charlie Whitehurst was sacked for an 8-yard loss by Corey Redding and McNary. And so now out would come the punting unit to punt from the 19. So now the Colts would take over on the Tennessee 44 after the punt. There was about 6 minutes left in the first quarter. Then on 2nd and 10 from the 44, Andrew Luck was sacked by Jones. He forced the fumble, but the Colts recovered. So now on 3rd and 11 from the 45, Andrew Luck hit Dan Herron. He picked up 26 yards in the first down that brought the ball to the red zone to the Tennessee 19 for the first down. Then on 2nd and 1 from the 10, Herron picked up 3 yards after picking up 9 yards on first down. And now the 3 yards made it a 1st and goal on the 7 for the Colts. Andrew Luck dropped back and he hit the tight end Coby Fleener for the 7-yard touchdown pass to put the first points on the scoreboard, with the score now Indianapolis 7, Tennessee 0. So now the Titans would take over on their own 20 after the kickoff with about 3 minutes left in the first. They would go 3 and out on the possession and end up punting from their own 26. So now after the punt, the Colts would take over on their own 36 with about a minute and a half left in the first. And on 2nd and 8 from the 38, Luck hit Fleener for an 8-yard reception, a first down at the 46. And now Trent Richardson ran for 4 yards, and that brought the ball to the 50 and the first quarter to a close with the score Indianapolis 7, Tennessee 0 after 1 quarter of play. And now to open up the second quarter with 2nd and 6 on the 50 for the Colts. Richardson picked up 2, but an incomplete pass on 3rd down would bring out the punting unit as the Colts would punt from the Tennessee 48. So now the Titans would take over on their own 1-yard line after the punt with just over 14 minutes still left in the second quarter, backed up against their own end zone. They did pick up a first down on 3rd and 4 from the 7 when Whitehurst hit Delaney Walker for a 5-yard reception that brought the ball to the 12-yard line, but they would end up punting from the 21 after 6 plays on the possession. So now the Colts would take over on their own 20 after the punt with about a little less than 11 minutes still left in the second quarter. They were faced with a 2nd and 11 from the 19, and Andrew Luck hit Reggie Wayne, and he picked up 80 yards. He did get injured on the play, though, but it was a first down on the 1, 1st and goal. Andrew Luck dropped back. He hit Doyle for the 1-yard touchdown pass, and was now Indianapolis 14, Tennessee 0. So now the Titans would take over on the Indianapolis 47 after the kickoff. They got a 52-yard return by Leon Washington. And so now on first down from the 47, Charlie Whitehurst ended up scrambling 13 yards to the Indianapolis 34 for the first down. And on 3rd and 1 from the 25, Whitehurst scrambled again, this time for 3 yards on the first down at the 22. They gave it then to Sean Green. He picked up 17 yards in the first down. They made it 1st and goal on the 5. And then they were faced with a 3rd and goal on the 1, and a delay of game penalty would make it 3rd and goal from the 6. And out of the shotgun, Charlie Whitehurst hit Wright for the 6-yard touchdown as the Titans got on the scoreboard with the score now Indianapolis 14, Tennessee 7. So now the Colts would take over on the Tennessee 27 after a 76-yard return on the kickoff by Josh Cribbs. So they would start off in Tennessee territory with about 5 minutes left before halftime. They're then faced with a 2nd and 1 from the 18. Luck hit Fleener for a 13-yard pass. They made it a 1st and goal on the 5, but they weren't able to get into the end zone. And so out would come Adam Vinatieri to attempt a 23-yard field goal. It was up. It was good. And the Colts extended their lead to 10 points with the score Indianapolis 17, Tennessee 7. So now Tennessee would take over with about 3 minutes left before halftime. They had the ball on their own 17 after the kickoff, but they would end up going 3 and out and punting from the 21. So now the Colts would take over on their own 17 after the punt with less than 2 minutes left before halftime. and they ended up going 3 and out as well and would punt from the 26. So now the Titans would take over on their own 46 with about a half a minute left before the end of the first half. And on 2nd and 10 from the 46, Charlie Whitehurst hit Delanie Walker for a 10-yard reception, a first down at the Colts 44. But then he spiked the ball, and that left 8 seconds on the clock, but then 2 incomplete passes would bring the first half to a close. So the score at halftime, Indianapolis 17, Tennessee 7. So now to begin the second half, the Colts would get the ball first. They had it on their own 26 after the kickoff, but after 6 plays, they would end up punting from the Tennessee 46. So now after the punt, the Tennessee Titans would take over on their own 6-yard line, backed up against their own end zone. With about 12 minutes left in the third, they would go 3 and out on their first possession of the second half and ended up punting from their own 14. So now the Colts would get the ball after the punt on their own 44 with about 11 minutes left in the third. And on first down, Matt Hasselbeck, who is now in the game, would hit Hakeem Nicks for a 20-yard reception. It was now a first down on the Tennessee 36. They weren't able to get another first down after that, and they would end up going for a 46-yard field goal attempt by Adam Vinatieri. It was up, and it was no good. So the score remained Indianapolis 17, Tennessee 7. So now after the missed field goal, the Titans would take over on their own 36 with 8.5 left in the third. They're then faced with a 3rd and 1 from the 45, and they got stopped for no gain. They gave it to Battle. And so now on 4th and 1 from the 45, they elected to go for it. They gave it to Sean Green, and he ran it not 1 yard, but 52 yards all the way down into the red zone, all the way to the Indianapolis 3-yard line. It was now 1st and goal on the 3 for the Titans. But then a fumble. They recovered it, though, and they would end up with a 2nd and goal on the 9. And they were not able to get into the end zone as when 3rd and goal from the 4, Whitehurst was sacked by Newsome. He forced the fumble, but Tennessee recovered, so they were still able to attempt a field goal. A 31-yard attempt by Succop. It was up, it was good, and it was now a 7-point game with the score Indianapolis 17, Tennessee 10. So now after the kickoff, the Colts would take over on their own 23 with 4 minutes left in the third. They're then faced with a 3rd and 1 from the 32. Hasselbeck went to Doyle. He picked up 6 yards in the first down for 38. Then Hasselbeck went to Fleener for a 20-yard reception. And it was now first down in Tennessee territory at the 42. Hasselbeck then went to Tipton. He picked up 32 and a first down in the red zone at the 10-yard line. And then on 3rd and 8 from the 8, 3rd and goal from the 8, Hasselbeck threw an incomplete pass, and that brought the third quarter to a close. So after 3 quarters of play, the score was Indianapolis 17, Tennessee 10. And now on the first play of the fourth quarter, Vinatieri came out to attempt a 26-yard field goal. It was up, it was good, and the Colts extended their lead to 10 with the score Indianapolis 20, Tennessee 10. So now after the kickoff, the Titans would take over on their own 18-yard line with about 10 seconds ticked off the clock in the fourth quarter. Then on 2nd and 10 from the 18, they gave it to Bishop Sankey. He ran 11 yards, but then he was blown up by Vonta Davis. He forced the fumble and recovered it for Indianapolis. So now the Colts had the ball on the Tennessee 38 to begin their possession. And they would end up with a 3rd and 1 on their 29. They gave it to Tipton, but he got stopped for no gain. And instead of going for the field goal, they elected to go for it on 4th and 1. They gave it back to Tipton, and he actually got dropped for a loss. And so the Colts turned the ball over on downs. So now the Titans would take over on their own 30 with about 12 and a half minutes left in regulation, down by 10, needing 2 scores. And on 2nd and 7 from the 33, Whitehurst went to Delanie Walker, but he fumbled it. But the Titans recovered, and an incomplete pass would bring out the punting unit, and so they went 3 and out on the possession and would end up punting from the 35. So now the Colts got the ball on their own 18 with about 10 and a half left in the fourth, and they would go 3 and out and end up punting from their own 25. So now Tennessee got the ball back with 8 minutes on the clock in the fourth quarter. They had it on their own 36. Then in the face of a 3rd and 12 from the 34, and Whitehurst hit Hagan for a 9-yard reception. So now it's 4th and 3 from the 43, and they elected to go for it. And out of the shotgun, Charlie Whitehurst dropped back, and he was sacked by Newsome for a 10-yard loss. And so now the Titans turned the ball over on downs off of the sack. So now the Colts would take over on the Tennessee 33 with 6.5 minutes left in the fourth quarter. Then on 3rd and 1 from the 24, an incomplete pass would bring up 4th and 1 from the 24. They elected to go for it instead of kicking the field goal. And on 4th and 1, Hasselbeck dropped back and he hit Tipton for a 13-yard reception. It was now first down in the red zone at the 11-yard line. Then on 3rd and 7 from the 8, Hasselbeck out of the shotgun hits the tight end Coby Fleener for the 8-yard touchdown pass. And it was now a 17-point lead for the Colts with the score Indianapolis 27, Tennessee 10. So now the Titans would get the ball after the kickoff on their own 25. And they would end up being faced with a 4th and 1 from the 34. They elected to go for it, and an incomplete pass by Palmer, who is now in the game, would turn the ball over on downs. And so they turned the ball over on downs. The Colts took over on the 34 with a little over 2 minutes left. And they gave it to Tipton. He got stopped for no game, and the game went to the 2-minute warning. They then took 3 knees, and they actually turned the ball over on that 3rd knee. And so now the Titans would get the ball, and they would take a knee, and the game came to a close. And so the final score, Indianapolis 27, Tennessee 10. The Colts had already won their division, and their final record by winning this final game is 11-5 on the season. They're 5-3 on the road. They have a winning record away from home. The Titans are 2-14 on the season, just 1-7 at home with the loss. And in this game, Andrew Luck was 10-16 for 160 yards and 2 touchdowns. He also had 5 yards off of 1 carry. That was before being relieved by Matt Hasselbeck, who was 13 for 19 with 155 yards passing and 1 touchdown. And for Tennessee, Charlie Whitehurst was 12 for 28 with 72 passing yards and a touchdown. Palmer only came in there for 3 passing plays anyway. He was 1 for 3 with 7 yards passing. The leading rusher in the game was Sean Green of the Tennessee Titans. He had 11 carries for 94 yards. And the leading rusher for Indianapolis was Daniel Herron. He had 10 carries for 35 yards. He also had 3 receptions for 31 yards. And the leading receiver was Reggie Wayne. He had 2 receptions for 91 yards. The tight end Coby Fleener had 5 receptions for 56 yards, including 2 touchdowns. Hakeem Nicks had 3 receptions for 46 yards. And Tipton had 2 receptions for 45 yards to go along with his 21 yards rushing off of 9 carries. And the leading receiver for the Titans was their tight end Delanie Walker, who had 7 receptions for 43 yards in this game. And the leading tackler was DeQuell Jackson of the Colts. He had 9 tackles in this game. The leading tackler for Tennessee was Damian Stanford. He had 7 tackles. Griffin also had 7 tackles as well, Michael Griffin. And the Colts had 4 sacks in this game. Newsome had 2 sacks. Jackson had 1 sack. And McNary and Redding each had a half a sack, and the lone sack for the Titans was from Jones. So the Colts win this one in somewhat of a blowout as they win by double digits with the final score Indianapolis 27, Tennessee 10.